Welcome to a special Meet Our Member edition of the IFBTA's Meet Our Members. And I am really pleased today to have a conversation with Andy Freivogel, who is the CEO and the co-founder of Science on Call. So welcome to the IFBTA. Welcome to Meet Our Member. Just welcome.
Thanks so much. We're so happy to be part of this community, and it's great to connect with you today.
So look, you're an entrepreneur. And we've talked, at a number of different conferences and things, and it's conference season right now. But I always like to know, you have a background coming actually from the restaurant industry. Before we get into Science on Call and what they're about, but you actually started in your careers in the industry.
Yeah. So I started early. I mean, besides paper route, restaurants was
What's a
where I had my
paper?
first
I'm sorry. What's a paper?
paper route. That was my first job. So
Oh,
yeah.
I'm
But
giving you a hard
after,
time about that.
no, I like it. I like it. Oh, good for you. I forget how dry and biting your sense of humor is, and I really appreciate it. So I
But
hope
if you have a
you'll
paper route,
continue.
that means, were you on a bicycle where you had like the things on the back of the bikes and you had to toss the papers?
I realize we have limited time, but I'm going to give you the story. So it started with 2 or 3 days a week after school, and this was in middle school. I would go to a warehouse where we would start assembling the Sunday paper, which a lot of people, I understand, not all of your viewers have experienced the Sunday
With the
paper, but it
rubber
used to be
band.
thick. Yeah, no. Beyond this is like the Chicago Tribune. It was so thick you couldn't hold it together with a rubber band. So Thursday, we would already have the comics, the ads, and a few things. Friday, we would start to get the opinions and a few other sections. And then on late Saturday, we would get the final broadsheet, like the headlines and everything. And so each day you would be assembling these newspapers. And so that's where my job started. But then on Sunday morning at 5 o'clock, we would show up at that warehouse, and drivers would pull up with their cars, and they'd be like, I got route number 13. I need 200 papers. And so we'd load 200 papers in the backseat of their car, and one of us would hop in, and they would drive around the neighborhoods, and we would be the kid that would grab the newspaper out of the back and either throw it. But again, Sunday paper was heavy then, 5 pounds or something like that. And so sometimes we'd have to run it up to the front door. And there were certain people that you knew, if you didn't have it placed square on the welcome mat, you were
Right.
going to get a call. And so one morning, again, 13, 14, I load 200 papers in a car. I hop in a guy's car. It was probably like a 76 Chevy Caprice. It was a whale of a car. And the driver was a little off. He, like, I don't know if I thought he had had a couple beers or something like that, but he was loose and having fun with it. And we were about 3 blocks into my route, and he said, "Hey kid, have you ever played Starsky and Hutch?" I'm like, "What's
Uh,
that?" And he's like, "I need you to sit on the hood, and I'm going to hand the papers out to you, and we're just going to troll through the neighborhood, and then you're going to throw them because that'll make the route go faster." I'm like, "All right, I'm game." So I'm sitting on the hood of this car, and he yells out the window. He's like, "You ever seen the scene in Starsky and Hutch where the guy's on the hood and the guy's driving back and forth?" I'm like, "No." And all of a sudden, the car starts to lurch back and forth. So I turn over and I grab the hood. And so I'm like Huggy Bear or Starsky or Hutch, like clinging on for life. And he actually tossed me into the parkway, and I missed a hydrant by about this far. But short version is I survived that. I did a few more paper routes after that, but my first job in restaurants was
okay,
shortly
wait.
thereafter.
So you know that most of the ads in those Sundays papers were probably coupons for restaurants. So I'm guessing that you're
Right.
looking at the coupons and then you're deciding that this would be a great career.
Right. Yeah. As I saw my life flash before me, I see like Ponderosa or Sizzler coupons, but then I also see the one ads, and it's fry cook, stand in one place and drop baskets of fries all day, and that felt a lot safer than Starsky and Hutch. So that was my next job, was at a fry cook for a now defunct brand that was being built to compete with Wendy's. It was called Delights of America,
Oh yeah.
and
It was
yeah,
like delights with Lites, right?
yes, yeah. And so I got a job as a fry cook mostly because I was in a punk rock band and we wanted to record our demo, and none of us had jobs or money. And so I drew the short straw, which was I was the one that had to get the job to be able to pay for studio time to record our demo. And so I went and joined the first crew at the Delights of America in South Florida. And yeah, it's where I learned about how easily you get burned, how you describe what happened to you the day before at work to your parents and things like that. And that was
So
my first restaurant job.
how do you make a transition? I mean, look, I started as a restaurant manager in Roy Rogers and Bob's Big Boy. So
Oh yeah.
how do you make the transition in the technology?
So it was a long one. I'll rush through it. I was a fry cook. I was a dishwasher. I got fired as a dishwasher because of my questionable appearance. The punk rock band days probably did not help. Um,
They know
and
that they
then
keep you in the dish room, right?
you would have thought, but this was a small owner operated Italian restaurant in Gainesville, Florida.
All right.
And he was very particular. And I didn't meet his standards. And he let me know. So I'm like, hey, if the cosmos is telling me I'm not cut out to be a dishwasher, I can accept that. What's my next gig? And so after college, I got my first job as a barista for a small coffee chain in the Chicago area, and I had relocated, and I learned that business from the ground up. This was specialty coffee, first wave, lots of syrups, lots of customers saying no foam on my latte, very different from the espresso beverages or you would purchase today from even some of our customers. So I was a barista, shop manager. I helped open a couple of shops for this brand. And then I took about a 12-year detour through technology. I was just married. My wife was working baker's hours. I was working retail hours, which meant we didn't see each other enough,
Right.
and we were newly married. So I took a job as a gopher for a network integration company, and that meant I ran errands. I cleaned the litter box when the boss was out of town, and I learned low voltage cabling. And that was my actual entry into doing technology work. Was building out networks for ad agencies and design firms that use Mac computers. There were different protocols. There was Apple Talk. It worked on two conductors instead of four, like Ethernet. And so that's where I started. And then I worked my way up from network installer to desktop support analyst to senior consultant and then business development. And I helped build a residential internet service provider in large condo and apartment buildings in Chicago. From there, that company sold that division that I kind of helped start. And I was not compatible with the new owner of that business. And so I needed to find something else to do. And through a very fortuitous connection, I discovered that Intelligentsia Coffee, which is a leading specialty coffee brand in the US and remains so, they're an incredible product. They were looking for a director of IT. And so I applied for that position, got the position, and that's where I spent about 5 years. And that's where I came to understand kind of every aspect of the technology and the tech stack inside the brick and mortar location, like in a retail location, but then also the enterprise stuff in the office. And what I was really good at was the tech stack inside the coffee shops. That's an area where I felt great
The
comfort.
operational side, because you had
Yeah,
started as a fry cook, you're a barista. I don't know what we did with the papers, but they sell papers in coffee shops. So I
they
get
do.
that. So there's got to be some sort of tie there. Okay, I get that. So what you were doing is you made that transition and you really got involved in networking, networks and things. And then now the restaurants are probably coming around right at around the same time.
Yeah.
And so now you take the restaurant job, but you're able to apply what the other industries have been doing.
Yeah. So we were, I was very confident in networking, and I was excited about some of the cloud-based solutions that were becoming available to operators. And so I actually transitioned the tech stack at Intelligentsia away from a legacy platform that had an on-site server and things like that, had a lot of problems with credit cards back in the day. And then I transitioned them to a cloud-based point of sale solution that ran on iPads That allowed me to apply my trade in terms of understanding networking, Wi-Fi, and it also opened the door to introduce other technologies in the tech stack, including guest engagement, like guest Wi-Fi. What do people do with that newspaper in a coffee shop? They sit and they read it end to end for the price of one cup of coffee. And so a lot of this was, how do we leverage that customer presence into something we can use on the marketing side? And so captive portal Wi-Fi was another solution we rolled out, and a few others. And so that's where I really got to play around. Like, Intelligentsia was really gracious in allowing me to experiment and make changes and improvements to the tech stack
So
while I
I'm
was there.
guessing that as the technology revolution's coming about in the restaurant industry, what you're seeing are all of these applications coming together in no single provider. I mean, that debate of all in one, best of breed, and people are looking at all kinds of things, having to put them together. And so is that where, so I know you have two co-founders as well. So is
Yeah.
that where sort of the idea came about, hey, why don't we go ahead and provide the support because they're going to have all these different pieces that are coming together?
Yeah, like I was already used to providing the support because I was generally a one man shop at Intelligentsia, and I was supporting retail shops on both coasts and as well as in Chicago. And so I was kind of on a 24-hour schedule. It wasn't too bad. Like, we didn't surpass 14 or 15 shops while I was there, but I had to be available, and I was really good at the remote support aspect of it. And so it was at the end of 2014 that I felt like, hey, I'm young, I'm good looking, I have energy. It's time to give it a shot, take a bet on myself, and start something. And so I actually left Intelligentsia and decided I was going to build out a boutique IT consultancy focused on those issues and the transformation opportunities for small businesses. And it just so happens I ran into my OG co-founder, and today she's our COO, Luisa Castellanos, a week before my last day. And Luisa and I decided we were going to do this together. So we
Wait, did you
basically
know each other before?
we did. I've known Luisa since she was actually 15. My wife's an artist and used to participate in a lot of public facing art shows. And the person in the next booth was often Luisa, who had started her first business at 11 and was building these incredible plush toys, but very kind of high art. Like, it was really hip, really edgy stuff. And she started that business when she was 11. We met her when she was in the next booth at an art show that my wife was doing when she was 15. So we had known each other. And when I ran into Luisa about a week before my last day at Intelligentsia, um, I'm like, so what are you up to these days? She's like, well, I'm going to graduate from DePaul in a couple months. And I'm like, you going to go work for a big company? Because she's brilliant. Anybody that knows her knows, like, she would be in demand. She's like, I don't want to work for a big company. I want to build a big company. And so then it turned into a short series of emails. What do I got to do to get you to come help me build this business? Because I'm leaving my job, but I need a partner, somebody who understands the digital side, somebody who's marketing savvy. And Louisa was all those things and more. And so that's when our first company launched. At the end of 2014, we launched Science Retail. We were focused on any brick and mortar business that wanted to transform their tech stack. And we were a consultancy going door to door looking for projects. And we did that for 5 years. But in 2019, we actually realized most of our customers were restaurants at that point, and that's where we were doing the best work. So we made the decision to focus exclusively on that and really double down on restaurants. At the same time, we were given the opportunity to join a startup accelerator that's run by Gordon Food Service through
Right.
their Relish Works team. And we joined that accelerator program in January of 2020, saying we're going to take over the world by providing remote support to restaurants. And of course, 3 months later, our plans had to change a little bit. That's when the pandemic hit. But what we found was we grew out of the pandemic because all of a sudden our skill set, which making sure things stayed online, making sure changes were happening on the back end and on a timely basis to support online ordering and off premise dining, we became very in demand. And that was a pivotal moment for us, for sure.
But you have a third co-founder, right?
We do. So it's it's as great a story. Ken Sang is our CTO, and we knew Ken because, long story short, I had applied for a job to work for Ken when he was running IT for a specialty grocer. He rejected me, but we stayed in touch. And um, he was always on our short list of like, man, if we could just have that one other magical teammate who could help us round out the areas where Luis and I were not that strong, we could conquer the world. And so when Luis and I joined the Food Foundry Startup Accelerator, we asked Ken to join us as a consultant. He was willing to leave a great career to join our team to just basically watch the desk, watch the queue while Luis and I were in basically startup business school. And we would check in with each other all day. And he would jump in at night and say, hey, I saw this thing that we could do better. Can we do this? And so the idea was that Ken would just be a consultant for us for 6 months, and we would figure out a way to turn him into a full-time employee. But the truth is, 6 weeks into it, I'm like, I'm crazy if we let this person go. I'm crazy if we don't turn this into our third co-founder. And so I made a very modest offer to Ken. He graciously accepted, and that is what absolutely put us on the map and changed our company.
So so we have the background and we
Yeah.
have sort of, where it started. Now, if I got this right, I just want to make sure I got this one right. But you are the one of the three that has the food service background in it,
Well, yeah, actually, we all have it. And so, well, Ken was at Standard Market, specialty grocer,
right?
where he ran IT and marketing. He actually opened for, I think, 3 or 4 restaurants within their spaces, and a standalone as well. And so he knew POS, he knew ops, he understood the whole picture. And he was boots on the ground for them in addition to kind of the vision on how they open these places. So Ken really got it. Louisa, who was earlier in her career at that point because she had just graduated college, she had spent summers working at an ice cream shop. And so and she had worked at for retailers as well. So we all had that in our DNA at that point. We had all been on the other side of the counter, greeting guests, fulfilling their orders, and navigating when things went wrong.
And having to use systems and understanding where the problems are. So that brings us to Science on Call today. So
Yeah.
you guys are actually sort of unique. And when I first met you and somebody started describing, they said the word help desk. And, now I know a lot about help desks. I used to run help desks. I get that. But it really isn't so much. How would you differentiate yourself, and how would you explain to somebody what your business? If I sit next to you on a plane, how are you going to explain that to me?
Yeah. How I explain that today is different than how I would have explained it 3 years ago. For the first couple of years, we operated as a conventional help desk. Our key differentiators were we already understood hospitality. We understood that the team in the restaurant is giving hospitality to their guests all day, but they don't typically receive it from their service providers and their partners. And so that was an area where we just naturally differentiated. We felt the need to help that team understand that we're not asking you to adopt to our methods. We want to be integrated into your culture. We want to say, we are the yes chef of service providers. I think we really understand how that dynamic works, and you need to make that person feel great when they're calling you or emailing you or texting you about a problem, because they only reach out when there's a problem. And when there's a problem, it also means there's 10 unhappy guests sitting in front of them. There's 2 Uber Eats drivers standing in the lobby looking for an order that hasn't even been made yet. They're under a ton of pressure. You have to lead with empathy. You have to lead with urgency. And I think that's something we got right very early, even in our days as being a conventional help desk. But in the last couple of years, we've made significant investments in leveraging the efficiencies and the speed of conversational AI and automation. And that's what allows us to pair subject matter expertise, the human qualities of empathy and urgency, with the speed and the efficiencies that restaurants are waiting to realize from AI. And I think that's the critical difference. But then beyond that, we've always been 24/7. No, please call us tomorrow and we open again. We're always 24/7. And we are always focused on restaurants because we feel we can do our best work by committing ourselves to an industry that we all love and absolutely need in our lives
So
to
when
have a
people
quality of
think though of
life.
a traditional help desk, they think about a room filled with people, or it may be remote people that are doing it, over time. But you're really sort of harnessing both. So how does that, how do you actually organize, you know, what the operation is, and then how do you combine, because so much conversation about AI, is about empathy and taking the hospitality out of the hospitality business. So how are
Yeah.
you actually putting those two things together?
Well, it starts with who we hire. So we're a remote first culture. Our agents are nearly all W-2s, and they are spread from the Pacific Northwest down to South Florida and every spot in between. It allows us a lot of time zone coverage, but also we almost exclusively recruit from hospitality. So you think about that traditional help desk, that room filled with people, it's a room full of either IT people, because IT is a lot of what we do, or it's an offshore call center filled with people who are reading scripts. We believe that the people who are best equipped to hold hands with that restaurant employee and get them through that crisis are people that have been there. And so our preference has always been who's been in restaurants for 5 years as a bar manager, an assistant GM, or even just someone who started in the back of a house who has a proclivity for technology. They are better teammates for this pursuit than IT people who order out once in a while. And
Well,
so
people
we've
also
all,
transfer into IT, from other industries, and some
it's
of the
true.
best
Yeah.
people that go into IT or even in call centers, are people that work their way up through the ranks and they understand what the person's actually doing. It's very hard when you're working remotely with somebody to understand what's really in front of them and they're trying to describe something or an issue. Now it's getting a little easier because you can take your phone and you can go ahead and show what it is, but
Yeah.
you still have to understand how they're using it. It's not just what's on the screen, but what's the outcome, what's the impact, how are they going to do it for service.
Yeah, it's a great point. And part of the advantage that we have over, I think, some would be competitors is that not only do we have this depth of restaurant experience, understanding what the room feels like to our end user, but also it's we spent 4 years solving nearly all of these problems manually. So phone call, email, research, back and forth. And what we did is we picked up a lot of data. And because we're platform agnostic, we're supporting nearly every point of sale solution, every ISP, every online ordering platform. And so when someone calls us with a problem that they're having, whether it's related to POS, hardware or software, or it's related to internet connectivity, internal networking, online ordering, we've probably already solved that problem before because we were collecting so much data in those early years where we were doing so much manual work. Our OPEX has stayed kind of flat. We add great teammates every once in a while, but we don't need to add a bunch of teammates every time we take on a new account because AI is filling in the gaps in terms of the intake, the speed of response, and then automations that we've built are executing tasks that used to take us 45 minutes
Well,
some of the time.
it's interesting because you're also focusing. So, besides all the different platforms, which I do get would be a lot easier to handle when you have some tools that can help you do the diagnostics and the things like that,
Yeah.
but you still have to know how they're going to be used, just because, you have some, you can't explain that. But I think that, you're talking about gathering all this data and having this information in front of you. But what I found interesting is it's not all or nothing. In the old days, people used to sit there and say, how about if you do the after hours support in the evenings and weekends, but I'll do the base. Then they started to do the split. I'll do some,
Right.
but because I have service levels, you take my overflow. But in your case, you offer them complete support, but you also offer them the ability, I believe, to use your tools and do some of their own support. It's not all or
Correct.
nothing, but they can take advantage of the tools and the different services that you have.
It's spot on. So we offer a couple of different products. I'm not trying to sell them, so I shouldn't even call them products. We work with customers in generally two different capacities. One is you can use the scaffolding that includes the conversational AI and the automations. And if there's something that needs to get escalated, it gets escalated to your team. So many restaurant partners that we work with have brilliant IT minds. They have IT leaders and IT doers internally. We are here to give them an edge, so they're just using the tooling more than anything else. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there are operators with 15 locations that they can't afford a full-time IT leader and IT
Right.
doer. And so we're doing a lot more of the work. And so in those instances, it's our science full support, and it includes us owning a problem from end to end. Yeah, we escalate, but we escalate to our own people, our own experts, as opposed to we tried this, it's not working, so we're going to have to give it back to your team. You
Right,
can't do that with a smaller.
but you can do that. But what happens when you're working in a marketplace that has so many applications, so many systems, that so many hardware choices? You also get involved in having to partner with them in dispatch service, track service. So how does that work? Are you partnered also with the suppliers as well?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have formal and informal partnerships. On the formal partnership side, we work closely with some networks of technicians that can provide our customers with boots on the ground support, which is only about it's less than 0.5% of all inbound requests result in on-site dispatch. We have it used to be 70% of the problems that we would receive we would solve remotely, and 30% required boots on the ground.
Mhm.
We have pushed the margins on that to the point where 99.5% of issues can be resolved remotely with our
Well,
platform.
also because you're able to help them manage their networks and their IT, you're also able to do diagnostics before something goes wrong,
Correct.
which would require
Correct.
somebody on site.
Yeah. Yeah. But you'd be amazed at like the grit of some of the team members that we see in like QSRs and fast casuals. They are all a lot of these people have grown up with iPads and things like that. Like connectivity is normal to them. Understanding that one thing doesn't work if it's not connected to the internet is normal to them. So it's not a stretch to say, hey, can you go in the closet? And like we usually have a map of their network and say, look at the second device down. What color is the light? And we can do that on the phone. Sometimes they'll text us a picture. Hey, this thing isn't working. And it might be the picture of an amplifier or a zone controller for a music system. We actually use computer vision to say, oh, that's the quality sound system number 13.
Wait,
And
wait.
if you do
Does
this,
that get forwarded to you from your punk rock days because you know how to
no.
plug in the amplifier, or is that how that works? That if it comes in for one of the sound systems, it comes to you?
Yeah, it does not come to me directly. We've got everybody in our team has tools they need to troubleshoot any of about 5 different music systems. I'm the last one they let near any issue anymore. I'm the furthest removed from the actual tickets, although I do jump into them mornings and evenings to kind of take the temperature. I like to know how our customers are doing. I like to know the kinds of conversations that we're having with them. That informs me about their needs.
But that means
But
that you also have to have some pretty good dashboards and tools to track how your calls are going, what the service levels are, what the standards are. And each customer might have their own service levels and things that they want you to handle as well, which
yeah,
makes, an additional challenge. So you have to be operating really efficiently yourself.
yeah, we absolutely. And it's funny, we were leveraging AI to solve a majority of problems 2 years ago. Like every ticket that was coming through our platform, the first touch was probably we were leveraging conversational AI and then also some automations to at least auto tag and consolidate the data we were getting from the end user
Hmm.
into like, oh, it's this category. This is going to be our next step. We were doing that already. It was the automations that really changed all of this. But we got challenged by one of our investors who's actually he's brilliant. He's about the smartest person I know. he said, what is your team actually doing with AI? Like, what is your team doing outside of using your platform, which is built on top of these services? What is your team actually doing? And it was when I was asked that question that I realized, I was actually lagging behind the rest of the team in my leveraging of AI tools to do some of my work. But it's how I learned to ask questions that revealed some of my teammates were actually going a lot deeper than I realized. And they're doing it safely. They're not doing it with their customer data, but what they're doing is saying, like, hey, this customer had opened 180 trouble tickets last month, and this might be for a 50 or 70 unit
Right.
group. And it's like my team on the customer success side was already using Claude to digest this, look for some proactive insights, which are not complete until that human teammate looks at the data, considers what Claude has to say, for example, and then says, all right, now let's apply those human characteristics of empathy, urgency, and judgment and make sure that Claude's getting it right. And so
Wait,
that
wait.
has
So you're
been
talking about infusing that into Claude.
correct. Correct. I
And
mean,
so is that
but
is that done by how you describe what needs to be there? And is that done by putting that into the instructions of Claude and changing the profiles and saying that this is the type of environment, this is what they're up against?
this is for data analysis and sentiment analysis outside of the work that we do. It's when we're standing outside the queue, which is where all the trouble tickets are.
Right.
We say, like, let's pull out all the tickets into a spreadsheet that were generated by this customer, anonymize, the locations, the brand name, everything else. And then let's say, Claude, what's your take on this? Do you see some trends? Because it's when you make trend analysis part of your behavior, part of your routine, that's when you can deliver those proactive insights that could really move the needle for a brand. It's like, did you know that you're having a KDS issue at 9 different locations with some frequency? Let's look at when we purchased that particular unit, or let's look at what network's in place and determine how. Yeah.
Well, you could sort of guess ahead, but the discussion seems to come up today because I'm watching all of these companies, including, by the way, some of the POS companies and some of the back office companies in our industry,
Yeah.
reducing their staff. And generally, what you hear is they reduce the staff because they've got AI in there. So why don't I just go use ChatGPT or Claude? And why do I even have to come to you? I might as well just go use that myself.
These are great questions. First of all, the broader LLMs, although they get better every day, they are always going to lack the complete contextual knowledge that is required to solve a problem. You know, you might have, Bob's Chicken Shack might have 3 locations. One that he built is his first proof of concept back in 2019. And then the next 2 that he delivered to market in 2024 and 2025 is they figured things out. Well, guess what? The networking components are different at all 3 because of just timing,
See, now
of when you
people
made the purchase.
always think that I just go buy the system or whatever. I'll ask my friend who has a similar business and their networking components are not the same, how they're using the reports. Generally, their back office applications, including the accounting or payroll, may not be the same. And they just don't think of that you can't just go ask your buddy how to go ahead and put something in.
And that's actually the best point. It's like, let's humanizing it a little bit further, is asking Claude, asking OpenAI is asking a buddy. It's a really smart buddy who works fast and can plunge through a bunch of different resources to deliver you the answer. But if your buddy hasn't stepped inside your restaurant, there's going to be missing data. And our intent engine, which is part of our platform, it leverages the LLMs to determine, like, what's the broad category of what this person is asking, what do we think would be the next steps, but then it pulls in that contextual data that remains private to us
But you
and
also
siloed for each
know
customer.
what the right way to ask the question, or you know how to ask a question that they did not ask directly because you've been in the
Right.
business, so you know to do that. So if we look at the service offerings themselves, so we know
Yeah.
you're doing network, We also know that you're doing management of sort of the admin piece, which do
Yep.
go hand in hand. A lot of people think they're just going to outsource that piece to a local company, but it really does go hand in hand when you're dealing with communication with employees and staff in our industry. So
Yeah.
we know you do that. You're working with the whole tech stack, of
Hmm.
everything, as you've said, loyalty, point of sale, drive through, all segments in here of those things. Are you also helping them to analyze and do the business analysis with the information that they have? Because, there's an awful lot of information. It's like the old days. I shouldn't even say this, like a VCR. They always used to make that joke. If you don't know what a VCR is, well, go look that up. But okay. So,
Yeah.
they used to make the joke that people would buy these VCRs that had all these functions and they would use like three of them, like record, rewind. They wouldn't use picture in picture. They wouldn't use all the other stuff. So, are you helping people actually to look at their data as well, if they have it besides the systems, to do better reporting?
There are instances in which we are, more often than not, that is just pointing them toward existing resources within the POS, which is like, hey, the thing that you asked for, you have that. We'll help you find it. We're not a training organization, but again, we're empathetic and we're experienced. And so if we see a shortcut to helping them, find the data that they need to make decisions, we're going to do that. There are other platforms out there that are focused on pulling out actionable insights from labor, sales,
Mm-hmm.
cogs, and they do a great job. And we have no interest in competing with them. But
But I
we
would
have
tell you maybe you should, because
well,
because a lot of those things that I see out there in the market are very general tools that will pull it. But you still have to know the data dictionary. You have to know the industry dictionary. For food cost is different. By the way, you did retail originally, because what was it? Science for retail science, or
it's
science for
retail,
yeah. So let me tell you, if somebody thinks that a SKU number is the same as an inventory number, it's the same, they're not.
right?
Style,
Right.
color, size. Now you have a perishable item. So just because you're working within the industry, you have to understand what those terms and terminology is.
It's a valid point. That's why I'm so glad you're the one that they made me have this conversation with, because you have that
There's
understanding
nobody else.
across
I don't
sectors. No,
know.
but
But
I like it. Yeah.
But why don't you take that same knowledge and that same passion that you had that got you into the business, and why people are doing business with you because you understand it, and say, let us go the next step, if you want, as a service offering, to say, you've got all this data. Sure, we can point to you where to go find it and how you can do it better. But on the other hand, if you really have the mindset of how to ask the right question put together, it's like a natural service offering.
All right, I feel busted here. That you realize that there's probably more to our offering than I've let on, but that is a conversation, because we know how to get there faster than anybody, because we have the access to where the data is. Um,
Absolutely.
and sometimes it's not even an API that you need. It's you need to be a trusted partner in the driver's seat with the credentialed account, and you
And
have access.
agnostic, and you are
And agnostic.
agnostic, and you come across the board. And before we actually came on, I was asking about something, and you said there are all these kinds of new things that you're looking at. And I cannot remember exactly what it was that you said, but it was something to the effect of, you're staying in your swim lanes, first of all, with the restaurant industry, but you felt that there were areas you have not hit yet and that you
Yeah.
need to go. And I'm sort of curious about that. What are the areas that I get it, staying in the swim lane. Okay, get it. But what are the areas you haven't hit yet that you really feel that the industry has a need for, and maybe you can provide that, for them?
Yeah. So one area that's the most exciting to us is, I think it's time to for someone to take another look at how equipment troubleshooting is handled in the restaurant. All of the equipment providers. So if you're talking about automatic espresso machines, if you're talking about micro or small ovens that are used for prepared or heated food in drive-through locations, we're already ingesting that data, because there are ways to solve many of those problems that could prevent inexpensive truck roll
And they're
for the
connected.
franchise operator. And they're connected. And we already have visibility to the network. So that is probably something that we're clearly working on. But also, there are adjacent verticals to restaurants that are really exciting to us because they like, so brick and mortar retail. We actually had a foot in that for a while, and we're going back to it. Um, we love the idea that convenience stores are starting to converge a little closer to what a
C-stores and
QSR looks like.
restaurants go hand in hand, and as they go to
Yeah,
EV charging and they get out of the gas business, they are going
yeah,
to go more in the food service. And if you've got Shell Oil with 36,000 convenience stores, go
yeah,
look at McDonald's. How many locations, right? So
yeah.
absolutely, C-store, the cutover, and their systems
And
are antiquated because they were built around standard retail and gas pump interfaces, and yet they
yeah,
need to move more to the food service side.
correct. And if we're looking at places where we can find more restaurants, a lot of times that's hotels. A lot of times that's amusement parks. You know,
Airports,
Disney,
stadiums,
yeah,
vending machines.
Disneyland has 75 restaurants. You know, on there. By the way, they count them. So we are excited about all the opportunities for that kind of lateral expansion, but our hearts are with helping our restaurant customers navigate these times. Like, I think we still all have a little bit of a pandemic hangover. We're shedding some of those behaviors that we needed to cope with the kind of shutdown of dine in, and we're still trying to figure some things out as an industry. And that is our first priority. But beyond that, I think the same incredible experience I have when I go to Big Chicken or an And Pizza, you know, brands that we're fortunate enough to work with, and I love their product. I actually find the same experience at my local 7-Eleven because they've got a pretty good pizza product. And
They're getting
I like
more
to
and
be,
more into fresh food, and they're
yeah,
doing partnerships. 7-Eleven's very interesting because they'll do pickup now of items from regular restaurants along the
yeah,
way. And they started their own app for delivery, and they tied in restaurants. So 7-Eleven's very interesting. But what do you call? I went to Buc-ee's this past week because I had to drive out to Virginia. You know, it may be 75 gas pumps or whatever it is, but I walked in there and I'm looking at, we're making the beef there. We're doing everything. So is that a restaurant? Is that a convenience store? Is that a gas station, a grocery? I'm not exactly, is a clothing store. I don't know exactly what it was, but
yeah,
that is Sheets. I mean, these guys are really, they're really coming at it. And during the National Restaurant Show this a few weeks ago, one of the winners in the convenience store industry, said that they're the fifth largest pizza chain in the United States, and
yeah,
yet they get no
yeah,
credit for it. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, and
You
they
know what,
are.
Hunt Brothers? Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. We're witnessing a transformation, a convergence, and the tech stacks are pretty dang similar. There's some differences. Need an ID scanner if you want to sell kids cigarettes or alcohol or whatever. I mean, if you want to make sure you don't sell kids cigarettes or alcohol,
Right.
um, you've got lottery. You've got probably more
There's a
critical
lot of
connectivity
things.
issues.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
things. By the way, COVID opened those things up. The ability to sell and deliver alcohol,
yeah,
that was not necessarily on the calendar in a lot of places. So now you can do
right.
full service. So is there a sweet spot customer if we're trying to reach people? I mean, nobody does everything for everybody. So I've got the swim lane down a restaurant and then the extended swim lane of where restaurants reside. Got that. So is there a sweet spot size of customer or type of customer or industry segment for you?
Yeah. We have found we're getting more inbounds and we're having conversations and moving forward with larger brands now. But still, we have a real soft spot for um, operators with between 20 and 200 locations. These are QSRs and fast casuals, highly operationalized tech stack, who either already their internal team feels overwhelmed with the 6 to 12 requests or incidents per store that you get every month. Um, we allow those teams to focus on what they're great at, bigger initiatives, evaluating platforms, rolling out new systems, and they don't have to worry about coming back to their desk to 80 trouble tickets about printers and online ordering and things like that. Our platform solves that for them. So we love working with teams that want to streamline, continue to grow fast, CEOs and COOs who have a vision for growing their restaurant concept and don't want to hear excuses about, oh, we can't build 3 stores fast enough because you guys are worried about a email migration that you're not getting to because you get too many printer requests. Like, we've solved for all that. And so we want to work with teams that are trying to streamline and grow their restaurant concept without adding a lot of overhead on the IT staffing side. But also, those IT people are our partners. We're there to allow them to do the things that they're great at and not have to worry about the death by 1,000 cuts associated with, hey, our scanner's offline, or
Is
hey,
all
we
the
can't.
business operator focused, or are you supplying the same services for suppliers?
So currently, being careful about this, we work directly with the operator.
So
We have closer
we
relation.
don't have to put that on here if you don't want to. If that's one of those questions you don't want in there, we can.
We're batting 1,000 here with transparency and authenticity. So I'll leave that up to you. But I would say,
No, it's not up to me. It's up to you. But
yeah,
I get it. So you're on the operator side,
we're on the operator side. We're there to advocate for the operator. We are there to integrate into their culture.
but that means you also have to have good relationships because you don't want to be viewed as adversarial or the middleman in working with the suppliers.
Agreed. So, two POS platforms that you're going to find in restaurants to name would be Toast and Square, both of which are leveraging AI and some conversational ability to solve basic problems. And they're doing it really well. Now, they do it like Toast is only going to do that for Toast. Like, if you now you can say like, hey, sous chef, I need you to 86, shallots, and it can do that across the menu. But is it going to do it across every platform? No. Our platform does that. Toast is only going to do that for Toast. Square too. Hey, Square, my printer's offline. It'll start telling you what to do to get that printer off back online. But it's only if you're using the printer that came in the box when Square sold it to you. It doesn't account for all the different iterations of the tech stack. I think they're using it well, but we've gotten acknowledgement from Toast, Par, and a few other POS solutions that like they think we're great for the ecosystem because when a restaurant brand is partnered with us, that means they have less trouble tickets to deal with. Now, their strategy for handling ticketing is different. They're both mostly offshore, as far as I can discern, or near shore. Despite the fact that we have 5 incredible teammates in Mexico who help us with our bilingual support, because restaurants are a multilingual business and our platform is multilingual. Um, I generally look at offshoring, nearshoring as defense. It's when people are doing that, it's because, well, we sent all this business to this other country because it was cheaper for us. We just have to give them a script to read through and they can solve most of the problems. I don't feel that way. I feel like as technology companies, we have a responsibility to not discount to solve that problem. We have a responsibility to innovate around that problem. And that means leveraging conversational AI, building automations to handle troubleshooting and execution of the most common tasks. That's what we're doing. And by doing that, we are reducing the number of tickets that any major POS company has to deal with today because their customers are turning to
And
us
by the
for that.
way, uh, it's numbered tickets. It's also the open to close on the first call. It's the length of the call. It's the speed to
Yep.
answer. A lot of those things that, people just really didn't recognize. But with more and more bots, answering the phone and things today, they become even more sensitive to it because what I think they thought they were going to do was they were going to decrease the call time and they were going to decrease the speed to service. But some of these things have actually increased it because just to getting to having that conversation, it like takes 10 things. And by the way, you may end up back at the beginning.
Yeah. I woke up one morning a couple months ago to the news that our platform had autonomously troubleshooted through a complex problem with an impact printer that was in the kitchen of one of our customers. And That restaurant employee reached out for the first time. We didn't know who they were, what their cell phone number was. We were able to authenticate who they were, determine which location they were at, and walk them through troubleshooting of this impact printer so that orders would start printing out in the kitchen again. And that, when our platform did that autonomously, we were really excited. But you know what? End to end, it was like a 22-minute ticket handling. And the reason is because we're omni-channel, so people can text, WhatsApp, email, whatever. They were texting, and that restaurant employee was serving customers and pushing orders into the kitchen while they were texting with us. And we couldn't know that that problem was resolved until they had time to go through all the steps. That took 21 minutes, but it took zero human effort on our
But
part.
you know what?
And the
I'm
yeah,
trying to figure out, are you telling me a good thing or are you telling me a bad thing? I'm not exactly sure how to take what you just said.
I'm telling you a great thing, which is first of all, you're right that some of these resolutions appear to take longer because it's not solved until someone says, "Thank you so much for solving my problem." And so that requires that user to be active and tell you that. And we don't mark it as solved until they tell us that. But the amazing part of that is it was a perfect marriage of the urgency and the empathy showing up in the machine. We've taught this machine how to be more human by the way that we've solved problems in the past over the telephone, for example. And the fact that we're getting there and the fact that we get to witness firsthand the convergence where finally someone is building AI that really does have empathy and urgency built into the DNA, that excites me endlessly. And it's only possible because we made that investment in real humans and real subject matter experts first.
Well, I could tell you that first of all, we could have a lot of discussion on a lot of subjects here, but just this very last aha moment thing tells me that if, and I haven't written one in a while, but if I was writing an RFP for a call center right now, what new statistics or what new questions I would be asking. And some of those new questions and things I'd be asking is you can't judge it, which is what you've just said, by the old traditional method of open to close ratio on the first call, or how long is it? Or how many calls does it take to close a ticket? Because that call is omni-channel, it's coming in different ways, and it could take 20 minutes, but you're also now not taking the person off the floor and what they're doing for those 20 minutes, which is the unattended consequence when you get somebody on the phone who's doing that, and so I think that's a aha moment here of something that you're seeing that could change the industry by your getting that out there or letting the industry know there's another way of measuring what's success.
That is insightful and validating because what we do at Science on Call is we relentlessly empower restaurant employees to focus on hospitality, not problems. We built this tool so the restaurant employee who saw that sign go up and filled out the job application, they were not thinking about, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to make minimum wage and I get to solve technology problems. Nobody thinks that. The vision they have for themselves at that first or second job that they're taking is, I'm going to get to serve great food. I'm going to represent a cool brand, and I'm going to get to interact with customers. And anytime you get to interact with customers, that is a chance to win. Even if the back of house gets an order wrong, or the order doesn't show up because something else was broken. When you're in hospitality, you have the opportunity to still turn that into a positive interaction. And that's what people are thinking about when they apply to work at restaurants. So we are here to empower them to do that, not worry
And
about the
by the
problems.
way, one can see the passion in that as well. I think that from the IFBTA perspective, it is a changing industry. Technology is changing, and many of the things that you brought up, just on this call, are about the insights and the things and how you're changing with the industry and where they ought to go. And we greatly appreciate your being a supporter member of the IFBTA. And I am curious, though, just sort of as a follow up, I always ask people this, but you know we've been around with you for a long time, and why the IFBTA, or what's, what is it that brings together that the value member proposition for you?
Yeah, I think it's the thoughtfulness and the balance that the IFBTA brings to the makeup of membership. It's you have these incredible leaders like on the restaurant side who are they are technologists, but they live and breathe hospitality, you know. And these are the kind of people that we get to meet through the IFBTA. These are the kind of people that we know serve as kind of your advisory. And the opportunity to learn from somebody like Kevin Bentley, for example, and to give have the opportunity to kind of to mix and interact with some of the other membership. That's when we feel like we're in that perfect spot between what we got to do as service providers, but the why, which is on the operator side. It's
And
like
I'm sure that
we
they're
can.
getting that from you as well, because clearly your depth of knowledge and knowing how to roll up Sunday papers. I didn't realize, by the way, it takes about 4 days to get to the Sunday paper. Now I know that. I also have been reminded, by the way, about Starsky and Hutch and being on the hood of a car. And but all of the different things that you learned, if you take a look at that, how they actually fit into what you're doing, being a barista, being a fry cook, then going ahead and doing the IT, helping in deployment, your partners, well, I mean, it's fate that puts you together, 1 week before you're leaving the one job, running into somebody, there and having a booth next to them, and then, bringing in somebody's, really, it's, I hate to say this, but you've sort of made an art in the science, right? Bringing these things together. You're offering science to solve the things, but what you're recognizing, it's really an art, isn't it?
It is an art. We used to playfully consider the slogan "Put your faith in science," and faith and science are supposed to be two very different things, but that's where technology and hospitality meet. Is in the middle. It's like we have the data, we have the machines, we have the processes, and then on the other side, we have the real art, which is the hospitality and the food that comes out of the kitchen. But if we could figure out a way to meet in the middle and respect what the mission is of those incredible teammates in the restaurants, it just makes us all better as technologists.
So somewhere in this, and we'll have to debate this at some point, or maybe not debate this. This will be a whiteboard discussion for your next marketing campaign. But I think somehow we need to think about how you have the science that enables the art, but it's the art of hospitality. And I think there's a book written on that one, and it's called that. And somehow you are the science behind the art, and you're combining the two together. And I think that really is really the message that even I'm getting, from this conversation today.
I love that. That is an aspirational goal for sure. But in the meantime, I think as long as we keep solving problems quickly, effectively, and like humans, then we have the opportunity to reach that goal down the road. But in the meantime, I'm looking forward to tens of thousands of tickets that every one of those is an opportunity to hear that sigh of relief from the teammate say, ah, it's working now. Thank you so
And
much.
to help
I'm going
them
to go
grow
get
their
back on.
business, get better customer service, and really take the industry in a new direction. So listen, it's been a pleasure having the conversation today with Andy Freivogel. And he's the CEO and the co-founder of Science on Call, a supporter member of the IFBTA. This is our Meet Our Member, and you've gotten a lot to meet today. And there's, I'm sure, a lot more conversations we have. But thank you so much for supporting the IFBTA and what you're doing to take the industry really in a new direction.
Thank you, and bless you all for creating this incredible community. We're really honored to be a part of it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And we'll look forward to continuing the conversation for many years to come.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
So thank you for joining us and Meet Our Member on the IFBTA. And today we've had the opportunity to spotlight Science on Call, a supporter member of the IFBTA. And we hope you'll continue to join us at the meetings and also supporting our members and supporting the industry. So thank you.